some reason my camera stopped set. Well, that to say that prior to 1885 or 1890, for all those reasons, less companies, because less people had that demand, wanted actual cloth colors, most of them being linen, but it could also be cotton, whatever, then prior. Suddenly there was a boom in cloth colors, still, until the 1920s, at least, I guess, and at least for Europe. And right after that, removable colors as a rule, or at least even fake, stiff colors, very stiff like these, were completely out of fashion, and only a certain category of people still wore them until the 1940s, 50s, and then they were completely out of fashion, completely like. So, but until the 1920s, until they were in fashion, most of these stiff colors would have been fake in the sense, either a paper, linen, or pure paper, which actually I have an example of my self-made ones. I will just take them from here. Or a form of plastic, or waterproof with plastic, like that one. And not actually starch cloth. So, because they were removed throwaway colors, so these are paper colors I made myself, linen and starched, and then it was coated in celluloid, so still a fabric but waterproof in celluloid. The only thing I really miss for this perfect display would be a collar, which I do not own, which would be entirely made of plastic, which I do have in France, but there are reproductions entirely made out of acetate, which technically did not exist. So the ones they had, which were purely made out of plastic, were actually called rubber. They were probably just purely celluloid, although this is not purely celluloid, this is actually a fabric, I guess, normally coated in celluloid. So there's beneath, the actual blue color and all, is like this, it's like a linen that was probably starched, and then after in the factory it is coated on both sides with celluloid. Just like that one is coated on both sides. And this is the opposite, so the paper is inside, the cardstock, and then on the outside there's that sheet wrapping it, the sheet of starched linen. So what I'm touching is starched linen. These are pure cardstock I made myself. So I took a big ply of cardstock, bent it and glued it. On that one I did not glue it, I wore it a lot, that one is unwearable, I made it too tight and too tall. But I glued it so it looks more like what it would have looked like had you purchased it. Some people also made them themselves with different results. Obviously, the paper ones would be, in a way, the cheapest of back then would be the most valuable, especially if they had been homemade, but even factory made, because also since they were the cheapest and most flow away, none of them have survived, I know of. The linen ones, also an original, unlike that one. I mean linen, not linen, would be extremely rare. Then coming like the rubber ones, which are basically just pure celluloid, still super rare, and then still very rare are the actual fabric ones, which are coated in celluloid, and then least rare of all are the starch fabrics. So basically it is the entire opposite. The most popular ones, which were actually these, in America these were the most popular ones, I'm not sure about England, I think these ones. In America these were the most popular, they have become the super rarity. The most rare ones are the last ones found, because obviously they belong to a high caste of people that are more likely to have kept their things. Why is that? I explained in a video, a playlist, entitled Why Only Black Victorian Clothing Survives. So I will not explain it again. And also because since that fabric, at least paper, does not last well. So even when it's simply linen that coats paper, so especially if it's pure paper, also few of them were actually like that, at least by 1860. Most ones, especially those paper ones, were actually like that. In other words, a mixture of paper and cloth. And yes, so the cloth ones are usually the ones that survive, but having said all that, there were very few cloth ones in percent prior to 1885 or even 1890. So I guess I would have to revise color styles precisely, but it's very difficult, and one one should always be careful, because even like a color like that could date to 1880 maybe. I'm almost certain it does not, but it could. I mean, the style, they had colors of that style or very similar. I would have to revise. One sees all these old advertisements that were drawings, and sometimes the drawing illustration quality or engraving was quite bad, so it is also hard to judge what color it is meant to have represented in real life. But a lot of those ads are available easily on Google. People have scanned them and all. You can see them. And also you can actually see photographs of the people wearing them. But for all intents and purposes, because they're wearing it below suit and it gets covered by their long hair, if they have long hair, or by their coat collars, and also especially by the neckcloth, it is harder to judge than on a cheap drawing even like this. Like, I can still see that this clearly represents that one. Because once... This is the tongue, so this is supposed to go over. If you think clearly, most people, man's clothing buttons right over left, so it is meant to button like that. This is why this is longer. This is called the tongue. And so yeah, it clearly, well actually it does not, yeah it does look more or less exactly like the drawing. The drawing represents it there. So, and one can clearly see that these two colors, this one is also most likely older than that one, and as a proof of that is that the height. In the 1880, well, at least from after 1885, and especially from 1800 and, I'm not sure, 87, 88 onwards, they really gained in height. So basically, at least because before 1880, as I explained in the Gangs of New York playlist, or in part, I think it was part, I would tell you that right away, it was, I explained that in Gangs of New York costumes playlist, whatever, it was like part 27, I explained it. Collars were not as stiff prior, so I'm not going through the whole explanation again, but I will simply say that collars were as stiff when they were fake, at least partly fake, in other words, whether coated in celluloid, or actually especially when it's coated in linen that actually coated the cardstock, like in other words linen. If it was cotton, so the cheaper version would have been a starch cotton wrapping a cardstock. So the only difference with that one would be that it would be cotton and not linen on the outside. And these, instead of being called linen, were called Linex. So, but I do not have one like that. You can still get repros from those, from dry goods collars in the cups, before they stopped making them all together. So these would have been the stiffest. So anything nearly as stiff as that, anything like that, would have been either rubber, in other words pure celluloid, they called it rubber, or Linex, or linen, or what they actually called celluloid, which was a fabric, usually linen, starched and then coated, waterproofed in celluloid. The fabric ones would not have been as hard as these before at least 1880, because it had not really become the fashion, and also what would especially differentiate between other types of colors is that until then, and very throughout history, colors that I know of were only 2 plies, and so 2 plies can never be as stiff as 3 plies. So obviously, if you use that starching technique, which is clearly different to these two because it is much stiffer, although that one is British, but never mind. Well, I think that one is British, I cannot be certain. If you use the same starching technique then on that 3-ply collar for a 2-ply collar, then maybe, I don't even think so, but maybe it would be as stiff as that one. Let's say it was exactly the same cut of color and size, and from the exact same material, but only 2 plies, whereas this is 3 plies. But then, instead of being starched with that technique, we had starched it with this technique. Maybe it would be as stiff, it would feel as stiff as that. Maybe, not certain. But overall, because, and also on top of that, because it was not really the fashion, whence a cloth collar to be as stiff, they did not actually want it to be as stiff or as shiny and basically fake looking, because these, although genuine, and because that one has never been worn, this one especially, you cannot see it on the camera, but this one looks fake actually. I'll know it is not, but it looks fake. Looks like it has at least been coated in celluloid like this one. Although when starched clearly this is still less fake, less stiff than, see, this has no flexibility.